Welcome to Builders, the podcast for leaders who want to build great companies. I'm your host, Alex Snyder, strategic advisor to world-class builders. This podcast dives into the wild rides and personal transformations that come with pursuing big dreams and becoming a leader who builds incredible teams and companies. Each episode, I'm joined by a guest who helps deliver a fresh perspective designed to leave you feeling less lonely, more connected to innovative ideas, and inspired about growing your business your way. If you enjoy the show, don't forget to subscribe on your favorite channel, leave us a 5-star review, and share your favorite episode with a friend. The podcast is sponsored by Alex Snyder Advisory. If you are a business leader or executive team ready to take your leadership and company to the next level with a high-performing team, we'd love to see how we can rocket fuel your growth. Check out the show notes to book your free Builders Business Booster call, where you'll receive a strategic leadership audit and 3 concrete focus areas to mature and grow your business. All right, thanks for tuning in. Let's build. Hey, welcome, Alexa. Thank you so much for joining me today. You are a true multi-potentialite, fashion blogging at 12 to lifestyle platform and podcast, career summits, Radio Disney host, personal brand consulting. I cannot imagine even doing justice to your introduction. So thank you for joining us. And can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes, Alex, thank you so much for having me. You hit it on the head right there, but I started as a blogger back in 2011 when I was 12, and I built the site out into this full-time lifestyle site. Ended up switching it to be a lot more about entrepreneurship when I was about 18, and then had a podcast that I sold to Disney, stayed on at Disney, and then while I was there, I launched Be Fearless, which I know you're speaking at in April, and then I just launched a new consulting business as well.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I love it. I love it. That continual go-getter, ever evolving. If you don't mind sharing, I know from your story that you have shared before, like many great creative endeavors, you got your start out of some pretty challenging circumstances. Can you share a little bit about how your childhood experiences sparked your entrepreneurial forays?
Yeah, I love that question. So when I was seven, well, I don't love what happened to me, but I love that question. When I was 7, my father was wrongfully convicted and put in maximum security prison in Rhode Island. And so the year that he got out is actually the year that I started my blog when I was 12. I'm from no money, no connections, super small town in Eastern Connecticut. And so I think looking back, the website was really an outlet for me to be able to find myself and my confidence as I pretty much grew up like alone because my parents were quite occupied with the legal scenario. This is also before the days when there was like TikTok and Instagram. So writing was very therapeutic for me and still.
That is amazing that you were able to find that. And what was your audience initially? Were you connecting with kids at your school, in your community, or was this really global? Like, how were you connecting with people?
Global, no. I'm literally from like farmland in Connecticut. So I remember the first followers were girls from my school. At the time I was in middle school, I think, when I started the blog. And then I stayed in public school until my junior year when I dropped out and went to online school because I was failing out really badly and didn't think I was going to go to college with those grades. And I didn't end up going to college anyway. But, back in 2011, so the way that like WordPress and Squarespace and stuff operate now is so different than when I started. So there used to be a little button on the side that would say follow. And the way that you view followers on Instagram, this was like how you would view it. I'm really dating myself here, but this is how you would view it on the internet, on these websites. And it was super cool. So like I would go on when it would say like there would be a little profile and it would be the followers and you would see their face and whatnot. And so there was this little army of like teen bloggers. I don't know if you know who Tabby Jevinson is, who started this blog back in the day called Style Rookie, but it was around the time that her blog got really big. And so it was this really grassroots way. Like you would go onto a blog and be like, hey, I love your blog. Do you want to follow me? And I'll follow you. And it was honestly looking back like really cute because there was no like hierarchy in the way that I think it can be portrayed now in social media where it's this, you have 1 million followers and this person does it, and are you making any money? And back then it was just like, you see the followers on the side, and there were some people who were leading the way, but everyone wanted to find a space for everyone else. And so that was really initially how you would track it.
I love that. It's also what you mentioned about not just, you weren't there trying to make money. There wasn't a hierarchy. I think in entrepreneurship today, we're really learning that trying to build a business for the sake of a business these days isn't it, right? Or a brand for the sake of a brand. It's when you actually are genuinely trying to serve, that tends to be what actually takes off, which is ironic. If you're trying to take off, then you often can't. So that's really cool. Yeah, the internet has changed wildly. I mean, I'm sure we can both date ourselves with that. We were barely using it when I left high school and into even university. It was not that common to have a computer.
Yeah. And it's cool because, I mean, it gives you so much opportunity nowadays, but there's also, sometimes I miss those days when you just weren't so connected.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's wonderful things that come with tech, but I am very glad that I grew up before the prevalence of it and the connectivity and social media, for sure. You went from 12-year-old girl blogging about fashion, connecting with other, kids your age, and then it evolved, right? To Life Unfiltered, to a broader range of topics, some heavier topics. When did you decide to seek sponsors, and how did you decide who to target and how to frame what you were doing, and how did you go about it all overall?
Well, back when I started, I really was unable to pursue like the Alexa Curtis personal brand full time, and probably till 2 years ago. I think people think like I was making money when I was 12. I mean, I wasn't. I had no idea what was going on. And so it's taken me like 10 years, like getting the Disney show and then leaving that and really figuring out, I think, how to monetize it properly. But so I have such a unique story because I found this way back in the day. I was interning for this girl in New York. She was paying me a small amount of money a month. I mean, I was like in high school, and somebody had said you should reach out to Alexa. And so she would go on air and do these morning show segments. And I was, fascinated by the entertainment industry, obsessed with being on TV. It was just always something that I knew I was really good at, was being on camera. And so I asked her, like, how do you make money? And she was like, oh, you reach out to, say, like a Kmart or a Target and say you have a morning show segment with Fox or the Today Show, and they pay you illegally behind the scenes. And she was making thousands. And so I ended up, as the blog was like very slowly growing, I figured out, okay, this is the way that I'm going to make money. And so it really evolved from, I would just find producers' emails online. I would reach out to them. I'd pitch them a segment. I'd fly to Detroit, Baltimore, LA, whatever it is. And I would get brands on board. And so then when I really properly, I think, monetize my personal brand, I've got so many of those connections from when I was in TV. But now I've become really strategic, I think, with the brand partnerships. There's also certain websites that I use a lot more where I've found brands that I've managed to have more like retainer deals with. But it's an evolution. And I think for every person who's trying to do this, you will never not have to deal with that numbers game. It is the most frustrating part of this, regardless of how creative or good or your ideas are. And so that's why I love the influencer side. I mean, I've been doing it for years, but I've taken a step back to start the consulting business and get more into Be Fearless, because the brand deals on the content side, it could just be a pain. It's just annoying sometimes.
Yeah. I have some clients who are in that space and friends, and it's like many things. I always say entrepreneurship is less sexy than we portray it to be. That content or influencer lifestyle absolutely is. And it can also feel really counterintuitive at times as well. You have to, like you said, you have to be strategic. You have to make some big decisions. How legit or legal or aligned do you want things to be? Thinking about the knock-on effect of partnering with certain brands. Yeah. So what did you want to achieve with Life Unfiltered? And is that sort of now more on the back burner, or is it something that you still have big aspirations for?
This is so random. You literally have the most toned biceps every time you lift your arms. What is this chick's workout routine? Oh my God, give me it. So
We'll
when
talk
I was
after.
when I was 16, I started cold reaching out to magazines to do sponsored posts, or not even sponsored, more just like creative writing. And so I ended up doing a post on Huffington Post about an eating disorder that I had. It went viral. Had a lot of girls and moms from the high school that I was at reach out. And from there, I was kind of like, I like to say along the years, I've always had these like money ideas, and it's the ideas that I've had that I think have like legs and I've been able to monetize the most. And I think that was like one of those light bulbs in my head that went off to where I was like, there's something here. There's a reason why it resonates with so many people that I wrote about this eating disorder. And then when I was 18, I was approached by Talkspace, that online therapy platform. And they had asked me to speak on a panel about mental health and social media. And this was, oh gosh, I'm not quite, if you do the math, I guess 6 or 7 years ago, maybe. And so I was in New York and I did the panel and I networked with a lot of people there. And I just realized that entrepreneurship, startup, and I think the more authentic I wanted to be and could be through that platform, the more that it was resonating with people. And also I realized it was really able to help predominantly young adult women. And so, yeah, most of the content now on the website is sponsored, but I mean, I've had that blog since I was 12. You can scroll back and see posts from like when I first started. And now it's not about fashion too much anymore, but it's, I think, a good mix of sponsored content and then more of like my personal story, evolution, entrepreneurship, whatnot.
So speaking of entrepreneurship, you grew from Life Unfiltered into the Be Fearless summits. How did those emerge from that?
So I was at Disney and I like just had started at Disney and I was going to a lot of different conferences, like on that conference circuit. And so there was one actually in Philadelphia called Pennsylvania Conference for Women. And I had this idea. I tried to pitch it out to tons of universities. I made a whole deck for it. I just came up with the name, like Be Fearless Summit. I was like, there's no pressure, nothing. Everyone said no. Then I ended up at this conference in 2018 and there was somebody there from Drexel and I like beeline for the table. And I literally remember just being like, hey, I'm Alexa Curtis. I've got this idea. Nobody says yes. If you ever want to. And she was like, oh my God, this is amazing. Come into Drexel and have a meeting. And so I was able to get them to say yes. And they didn't offer any pay, but they were like, we'll give you the space. Like, you do what you want with it. And so it went and it just took on a life of its own. I mean, I had never planned an event before. I'd never worked with a university and I learned so much, but I literally pulled off on my own this full day summit, back-to-back panels, like celebrity speakers. I like cold called and asked if they would donate their time. Like Shake Shack was a sponsor. I lost money for the first 3 years on all of them. And then the past 2 that we did were like 10K plus deals with 2 different universities. And now this is the first one that's not in partnership with a university, but like the model for tickets I'm trying out is a bit different, where it's like, basically you're buying into participating in this like more invite only exclusive community. So it's a bit of a different model. But that's really how it evolved from when I first had that idea.
Amazing. And what's the objective of the Be Fearless? If someone's going, what are they going to experience?
I always like to say, if you come to a Be Fearless Summit, you'll leave with a mentor, a friend, or a job. And I literally interviewed so many people who have come and like 99% of them have left with more like mentor / job, but also friend. And I think what's really unique about this programming is, number one, the demographic. This is not a South by Southwest that's like a $1,200 ticket. So number one, like off the bat, it's exclusive, but it's not out of reach. And then second of all, for what I think people pay for some of these other large scale summits, we are able to present such top level speakers from so many areas, many of them whom have sold companies, been acquired, or like C-suite level executives, and give people like literal direct access to them. And again, at the price point of what a ticket is, and if not, like you're getting it for free. It's just something I wish I had along the way. And I always felt like those super high-end events were so out of reach for me as like a young person. I couldn't afford that $1,200 ticket. But like, where else do you find these mentors? Where else do you connect with these people? So I think it's pretty cool.
Completely agree. I mean, I don't even think the events were on my radar by when I was in university, let alone, and I absolutely couldn't afford them. I couldn't afford groceries sometimes. So you have also more in the Fearless brand, which is your Radio Disney show, Fearless Every Day. How did that come about?
So I cold pitched actually that show. I was living in Boston at the time, and this is like before Be Fearless Summit and everything. And I ended up getting an email list and BCC'd 466 people on an email and heard back from one person at Disney. And it was the VP at Radio Disney's assistant. And he was like, if you live in LA, let's take a meeting. And so I literally, like, the 3 days later, flew to LA, had no expectations for it, and ultimately over the next like 6 months was able to get them to say yes to a spinoff of kind of the podcast that I had. So it was a bit of a spinoff of that, but like for the Disney brand. So they came up with Fearless Every Day and whatnot. And so I signed a year contract with them and I stayed on for a year, and then I left and decided to build Be Fearless. But I moved from Boston to LA, and it was a really awesome experience. I never worked a corporate job, so it was like my first experience having rules and being told what to do, and it was uncomfortable, but it was cool.
Amazing. Yeah, I was going to ask you, what was it like to have your brand under another brand? I can imagine it's like a lot of learning.
A lot of learning, a lot of phone calls, like being yelled at. It's also weird because I'm not an actress. So for that brand in particular, for them to take on like a talent like me, that number one, like called them and was like, hey, give me a show. And then second of all, is not an actress. They almost like found a spot for me. And I'm so grateful they gave me that chance because it's not traditional. Like you usually can never get in the door with these networks. I mean, Disney is the top without like agent, manager. And at the time when I first wrote that email, I had no representation. I literally was just like a girl who was doing these TV segments to pay her bill and like blogging. And so it was just a super sick thing. That's what I like to say, the power of reaching out to somebody, introducing yourself, cold calling. That is living proof how important that is.
Yeah. And like you said, with the summits as well, you had this idea and you pitched it, and then the 101st person was like, love it. Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah. So you've taken on a number of new challenges and gone in a lot of different directions. What's the biggest lesson you've learned taking on each challenge?
The biggest lesson I've learned is that everyone should have a good legal team. And second of all, aside from that, you have to be so comfortable being uncomfortable. I think the older I've gotten, the amount of, I will be totally transparent, and like the amount of breakdowns over the years that I've had in airports, someone didn't pay me, like something went wrong. Like I was illegally signing contracts when I was 16 because I didn't even know that like you have to be 18. And I would just have these like full kind of like panic attacks. And I think it's very difficult when you try and build something or you're trying to do it all on your own, and you've got your own elements of imposter syndrome, then you're trying to prove to people. And so I think the biggest lesson I've learned is anytime something goes wrong, go on a walk, turn off your phone, no longer feed into the anxiety. So I think that's like really helped, because the amount of like freakouts I had when I was like 16, 17, 18, even like Disney had said yes to the show, then they said no for 6 months. I mean, it was like fully suicidal. Like I couldn't get out of bed. It was awful. Then they ended up saying yes again. Looking back, I wish I had known what I know now, that like knowledge is power, but also if this isn't the time, then this isn't the time. Something better will come. And you need to experience a lot to be comfortable with that. But I think once you realize, the more you experience, the more that you'll be comfortable when something goes wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely agree. And I think they say wisdom comes with age, right? And it's not so much age, but experience, that you figure out first of all, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, but there is a timing for everything. And unplug, go for a walk. It's amazing the perspective you'll gain, but it's hard. It's hard to unplug. Like what we were talking about before, we are so connected into everything, and everything is designed to keep our attention, right? So
yeah,
crises included.
Oh yeah. And that's what these apps are for. It's like wild. I really try not to, I don't know how often you use TikTok, but I really try like no longer to scroll, but there's this term, produce, don't consume. Like for my own mental health, I realized that it's wild. I mean, the minute you're off of it, you like want to go back. It's like this bizarre, weird drug. And it's insane to me that people don't realize the detriments of utilizing it in the way that people are so often on it, because they're making money off of you. You're getting more depressed, and you're not seeing stuff that's for the most part really helping you in the way that you do when you're at a networking event, or you're just like in an authentic, organic, in real life convo.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I think I actually don't use TikTok. I have one, but my team posts to it. And I
Good.
like always wish to be on there sometimes, but I don't. Instagram, I try to be really intentional. And I think I sometimes will see it in myself as a negative, but I am a much more old school, in person. Like I know that I need to share and be available on some of these platforms, but I am old school and I love an in-person conversation event or a Zoom call. But yeah, much more of the like uno a uno.
I love your Instagram. I think it's also great. I even love the posts you even make. I mean, I think being able to just put even a little bit more effort in the sense of your graphic design being so good, or like the way that you interact or participate in that combo, that's really what sets people apart in this day and age of the influencer content world, because everyone's trying to do it. So I think you do it great.
Thank you. I think to the point you made earlier, like because I don't see them as the way to stardom or even necessarily clients, I really see it as how can I put what I've learned and honestly learned through a lot of hard lessons and hard work, right? I did the corporate gig of 20-hour days. I did startup life. I've been through some pretty like challenging circumstances personally and professionally. So it's like, how can my perspective has always been, since I had a public account, which is still pretty new because I was always like away from social media, of like, how can I just provide helpful information? And it helps. I think it takes the pressure off when I get a lot of feedback. Oh, you should sell more. You could do this. And I'm like, yeah, okay, I could. But I think I get a lot of feedback just being like, it's so helpful. And every time I'm like struggling, I can listen to something and I always come away with something that helps me take one step in my business. And for me, that's the win.
Huge. It's like a dance, right? It's dating. Like you don't want to be too salesy, but you also want to show your true colors because that's how people know you're authentic or whatnot. So it's really like a dance.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And I think also to a little bit to your point, I'm a big fan of accessibility. And the reality is not everyone is going to work with me or needs to work with me or can afford to work with me. It doesn't mean that there isn't something for them in my world. And I think that's the other thing that's really important to me because, yeah, I know what it's like to not be able to access things.
No, that's huge. And I think as a coach and stuff too, like everyone now is, I'm a coach, but being able to say, no, this is the experience that I have, and this is why I'm an expert, and this is why I charge what I charge. And if I'm not a fit, then I'll refer you to someone else, I think is so practical.
Yeah, that's been my motto since day one. It's important to me that you succeed. And if I'm not the best person for that, why in the world would I spend my time working with you? Why would I take your money? It just doesn't make like it's not going to be good for either of us.
Exactly.
So yeah, you nailed it. That's a huge part of my ethos. And I mean, privileged that when I started this business, I was coming off the back of selling our company, was a VP for the buyer, had a good job. Like I was in a good place. I know there's some privilege to be able to say, oh, I'm not going to take someone's money. But I think in the long run, no matter what situation you're in, if you want to build a business, particularly in service, I think that's the way forward.
Yeah, huge.
Yeah. So this is a bit of a broad question, but is there an ultimate end goal for you? You've got a lot of different pieces that are really complementary and working well together. And I know you're kicking off the consulting as well now. Is there something bigger that you're trying to achieve, or are you?
I think about this a lot more now. I think just as I've gotten older and been doing this for so long. And when I say like this, I mean like the entertainment stuff, the influencing. I feel as of lately, which is wild because I've been doing this since I was like 12, I feel like it's finally working. Like it's a weird thing because I've been doing so many different things and spread so thin for years. And I finally feel like I'm seeing an element of the results, like with my newsletter. And like I launched this premium subscription and I want to launch an e-course, things that I had no idea about a year or 2 years ago. So simultaneously, like the Alexa Curtis brand, I mean, that's like my bread and butter. That's what I love. And I think inspiring people is something I'm really good at. And then I see a lot of opportunity with this consulting company. I mean, I had no plan. Like I was literally bored one day and made a website. I had no idea that like people would reach out and people would want to hire or find more out about these services. And it's funny because I've been doing a lot of it for like years. I mean, the PR stuff behind the scenes, like if I'll pay you a few thousand a month to get me PR because I'm pretty well connected. I've been doing it. I just was like, I'm like, there was no point in me because I didn't want to stray away from this personal brand. But now that I see it can run simultaneously, I would love to build that out into maybe, I mean, I don't want to say like a next Deloitte, but like something in the consulting realm that is perhaps maybe a bit more feasible, but specifically for personal brands, and then continue to grow my one.
Yeah. I'm sure you could build the next big four, but having been in them, I wouldn't recommend that's the model.
Yeah. And I've actually never been in or worked with, but I know so many people who work at McKinsey, Deloitte, Bain, whatever it is. But I still don't understand what a consultant is. I don't understand. I can tell you what I do in a day as consulting, but I don't understand if you're working for one of these. What do you do all day? No idea. I probably should interview some people and ask, but I have no idea. Yeah. And people hate it. But then like people hate consultants, but then these companies make so much money. So I'm very confused, but I'm learning.
Everything has a trade-off, right? I mean,
yes,
it's a grind. There's a lot of challenges in that, particularly if you're talking about either the big four or the two groups of big fours in consulting. Mm-hmm. You know, the trade-offs, right? Everybody hates it. Like, it's hard. And most of these companies, they treat you well in some ways, but they also wring every ounce of value out of you. The trade-off is I did 10 years and it's like a 3x. It was like 30 years of business experience in 10 years. I mean, the amount that I saw just set me up to be able to understand the business world in a way that I think is difficult with any other background, just in terms of the breadth of experience that you get. But yeah, we could do a whole show on consulting. And if you want to interview someone, you know where to find me.
And I know I want to have you on my podcast, so that actually gave me a great theme for it, because I'm fascinated.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Like you said, you've built this brand and you're now figuring out what it can and can't do. And it's a truly incredible personal brand, and you have monetized it from a relatively early age. I'd love to understand what made you decide to help others build brands, why founders?
I have no idea. Like, I go back to the way that like I got that Disney show and how unique this story is, because so much of this has been trial and error. Like, even the niche of personal branding, which I think I've perfected in the past. A year ago did not, that's such a catchy, I think, phrase now too. I don't know why I decided to go with that, but I realized that that's really what I've built, a personal brand, done it from scratch, figured out ways to monetize it that have really been maybe a bit more non-traditional or like unique ways to monetize a personal brand. And so I think that experience for me, just doing so many different things for years, but like it all coming back to that like Alexa Curtis name and like knowing what I'm good at, which is like podcasts, being on camera, whatnot. That's really what that personal brand is. And then of course it's a whole other beast trying to figure out how to monetize it. But I've just got these really, I think, out of the box ideas for how to do it and how to set yourself apart. And so like the fearless mission, and then I think personal branding now is like really the forte. So I hope that it continues. And I think there's a lot to unpack in that, because I've been able to help a lot of people get those brand deals and get in front of the right people, or maybe not get their own Disney show, but get that opportunity that they didn't even know that there was, like how to find PR, how to cold pitch yourself, or how to make a fake assistant. And these are all just like ideas that I've had. And so it's cool that through that personal brand, I can tell now people how to do it, and maybe how to do it in a little less of an expected fashion.
Yeah. I think it's great. I think even if you're not sure why you chose it, you really hit the nail on the head, because founders is already such a wearing all the hats. You have to learn how to do everything. And being on camera and being in front of people and talking about what you do doesn't come naturally to most people. Why would it come naturally to a lot of founders, right? I mean, you can have the real visionary, like face of the organization, really charismatic. Some people are there, but for every one of those, there's 80 other people founding companies who have no idea and are uncomfortable. And if you can help them get there, you could be helping bring really amazing companies and ideas to life. So I think that's really cool.
Yeah, and it's fascinating because a lot of times, and I mean, I know you speak to so many founders too, like so many founders are really uncomfortable being on camera. Like they're able to say this is the best protein bar in the world, but like they don't want a newsletter. They're like, they do, but they're like, but why me? Why me? And if you've got a product making $10 million a year, you're the brains behind it. Like being able to know and also showcase that to people, to me is like a phenomenal thing, because you're able to now, there's a reason why every founder started something, regardless of whether you're like me and started as a blogger or whether you're like making these mugs, right? So you should be able to give back, I think, as a founder, in more than just your product, which is your story that you have to share.
Yeah. And that's also depending, not everyone wants to go funding route or things like that. But if you're going to grow your company at a certain point, your story becomes huge. When people invest in people, not products, that's the reality.
Yes.
And I mean, I resonate with what you're saying, because honestly, I wish I had someone to help me. I was not a front of camera person my entire life. I have always been the person behind someone else. And to a degree, I still am in the way that I help my clients. But I knew I was going to have to overcome that if I was going to really do this on my own and really put myself out there. And I will say, for anyone who's listening and is not sure or is looking and thinking like, oh, but Alex, I get people talking about my presence online. And I'm like, you don't even know like where it started. You don't even know the level of discomfort. It's like poco up, like bit by bit. Sorry, poco. Like you just start figuring it out and you build. And I could have never believed that I'd be doing this, that I'd have my podcast, to be on others, that I'd be speaking on stages, that I'd have a newsletter, any of it. But you get there and you figure it out. And I think if you're able to help people figure that out while they're doing the thing they love and be able to share more, I think that's amazing. So,
oh gosh, and you're so good at it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I still get massive vulnerability hangovers and things, all kinds of stuff. So again, just for those who are listening, who are thinking they want to do this, but it feels unwieldy or impossible. Yeah, like I still get big vulnerability hangovers. I still am sometimes like, oh my God, I can't believe that's going to go out. Or I dissect how something went. I overthink things. And I knew when I started this business, like I can sell projects, teams, companies, but I knew selling myself was going to be my biggest hurdle. And I think that is very common.
So common.
Very few people that you see out doing this or anything started feeling 100% like, yeah, fine.
Yeah. Agreed. It's so hard because it's also so weird. It's so weird to sell yourself, and weird, I guess, is maybe the incorrect term, but it's so uncomfortable because anyone can get up on a stage and be like, I'm the best, buy my service, this is my product. I mean, are you a narcissist? Because I've never been able to get on a stage and I'm confident, but of course you still wonder, but why me? Is this, I know I'm good at my job, but also like, this is so weird. And so it's, again, I think it's that dance, and I think it just takes years to perhaps perfect that dance. Like, I'm confident and I know what I sell, but I'm also a human. So like, I can teach you how to have a personal brand, but there's also, I have flaws. That's just how it goes.
Yeah. And I think it's the vulnerability, right? Mm-hmm. And it's figuring out how to be real and vulnerable while showcasing your expertise in the way it deserves. Yeah. I mean, speaking of that, we talked about you've built an incredible personal brand. You're helping people to build those. So for those who are listening, what are the fundamentals of personal brand building in your opinion?
Oh gosh, I actually was I just did a PowerPoint earlier on this I wanted to make. I think there's a few fundamentals. I think in particular, knowing your niche. For me, it started as fashion. Now it's evolved to more like entrepreneurship, startup. I think knowing your niche, which I think comes through like customer interviews, user interviews at the beginning. Mm-hmm. I was doing a session yesterday with a woman who just launched a podcast, and she has a newsletter and she's got 2,000 people on it. And I was like, have you asked any of them what they want to hear from you? Because she doesn't know what to talk about on her podcast. She was like, no, I didn't even think about it. And I was like, that's your customer right there. Anyone, those first 5 followers, 10 followers, 500 people, those are the people who are going to buy whatever you're selling, whether that's your nail polish or like your next subscription or your book. So go to them, ask, what do they want to see? I mean, I probably do one interview at least every 2 months, like minimum, because things are changing and people are changing. So I think that's really important. I think also with personal branding, if you can find somebody, 3 perhaps people who have done it. Like for me, I really like Sheryl Sandberg. I'm obsessed with Sarah Blakely. I love Michelle Obama. Obviously, like their niches are so different. The way that they've monetized, the way that they've done specific public speaking gigs, written particular books. So knowing, even if you don't know what your niche is yet, knowing like these are the people in that space that inspire you. And then I think, yeah, also the amount of experience you have is really where you can say you're an expert. I think I'm at a point now where I can and do consider, which also makes me very uncomfortable, consider myself an expert in this space.
Yeah.
And so if you're selling your services and you're like, 3 months ago, I launched a personal brand, like you're just not ready. You're very like new to this. So I think you can, like you're dipping your toes in, but really going to conferences and like starting to public speak and whatnot versus just trying to sell coaching at the beginning is like really important so that you can build that client base and also figure out what do people really want.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. You spoke to this dedicated kind of community that you're going to have, that your first few followers, the people who will follow you and buy from you. What do you think is the secret to building a dedicated community? Or how does your community maybe grow or evolve with you?
I think for me, number one, like authenticity. And I say that because you have to be really silly to think this is a market where like everyone on the internet is great and everyone wants to help you. I think 99% of what I see online is just BS. And so I'm really glad that like I'm fucking authentic, and I'm glad to say that, and like know what I'm talking about, the good, the bad, everything in between, because it's my own personal experience. And so I think that's probably number one why people follow me. And I think number two, the community thing, I never really saw myself as that's what it was, but truly that's what this has been since age 12. Like the, hey, do you want to follow me? Or hey, do you like my site? I'll click follow. Like it's all building on that. And so again, like that's your customer base. And for me, it's always been really important to, I don't want to be 60 years old feeling like the only way I'm going to make money is waking up being like, hey guys, here's what I'm doing in a day. And so that's like another product, right? Like these people who are now in this community, sure, it's stemmed by me, but like it takes on a life of its own. Like we have this kind of really cool Telegram group, and people participate in that convo and make friends and have job opportunities, even if I don't go on it for a week. And so that's really great too. So if you're doing something in the personal brand space, that may be something you want to think about launching, a Slack, a Telegram, something that gives your customer more than just you. It's just a big value add.
Yeah. It's interesting because I've often hear these days people cautioning against letting your connection to your community be controlled by a social media platform where your account could be suspended, restricted, somehow the rules of the game could change overnight. And the mitigation is usually a newsletter.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it'd be really helpful to talk a little bit about the fundamentals of growing a newsletter, but maybe also what are some of the other alternatives, like you said, Telegram versus a newsletter, because one is still a one-to-many and the other is more of a community space where there's organic interactions growing.
I love that you bring that point up, because I have been saying this to anyone who ever tells me I want to be an influencer. My first two questions is, but why? What are you influencing? And number two, if your only goal is to amass a mass amount of followers on a TikTok, on an Instagram, and one of these platforms shuts down, what are you going to do? And so that's why I always say, if you're trying to become an influencer and you want to quit your day job, that's a really stupid idea, because you're giving, as you just said, all of the power to this thing that just may shut down. So I love newsletters. Like I have built mine, I have scaled mine. I think it's an awesome thing. I've always had this email list, like since the beginning. Like it was just a pop-up. That was the one thing back in like when I started. I mean, email lists have always been around. So I always had the sign up for the email. I didn't always put out a consistent email, but there was always so I think that's really great. And then for the community thing, I've tested this out over the years. It never really worked until now, quite honestly. Predominantly, I tried it out on Facebook, like Facebook groups. And I mean, there are some people like the Skinny Confidential, Lauren Bostic. I mean, she's got this, I think, hundreds of thousands of people in this Facebook group. I never felt like it worked until I did this Telegram one. And so I think for me, I was in other Telegram groups and I was like, okay, this is cool. I think this is an easy way to do it. Slack, I have a Slack for my company, and I've been in other Slacks for like other, companies and whatnot, but I think it's too close to work. So I think when somebody is like getting Slack messages about their day job, like why would they want to go on and then make friends? Yeah. So I like this Telegram thing. I know there's also like Discord, but I think Telegram's probably the best at this point. And then if it's free, you can just send it out. Like, hey, here's a link. Once you know your niche or like what somebody's going to get when they join that, that's when you can start being like, hey, join this group. It's really great. You may get a job opportunity, whatever it is from there.
Yeah, so that brings up a good point. Most of us can't manage our inboxes already. So how do you convince people to sign up and give you their email or their information?
I don't really convince them because I'm very slick with the way that I sell. And I think like the newsletter is a product, this premium membership is a product. Oddly, I've found a really sweet spot in Reddit. So I've joined a lot of groups on Reddit like mentorship or marketing or sales. And
Mm.
it's so funny because I'm selling sometimes a $17 membership. And the minute somebody signs up, I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing. And it's 17 bucks, right? Like it's nothing to me. That
Yeah.
being said, the effort of going through the sales funnel. Hey, I saw you posted, for example, right? Like somebody posts, I need a mentor. Anyone have advice? Hey, I saw you need a mentor. What are you struggling with? Oh, thanks for reaching out. I can't seem to get anyone to buy this coffee I launched. Oh, why do you think that is? I don't know, actually. I think it's because XYZ. Oh, interesting. I don't know if you're like interested, but I've got this membership. It's 17 bucks. I'm happy to give you a refund out of a month. Like it's, you know what I mean? So I'm not like, hey, subscribe to Stay Fearless or Die Trying Premium for 17 bucks a month. It's more if you think this is potentially going to add value. Like I think it adds value. I think the people in it get value. Here is
Yeah.
it.
I love that it comes back to service again. And I want to actually highlight something you just said because it really resonated with a conversation I had yesterday with a former client who I stay in touch with, friends. You said $17 is not, it's not a big thing. And they've just launched something and they were saying, well, it's not the ultimate and it's like a micro win. And I said, no, momentum, right? Like repetitions, momentum, every step builds on every step. And as entrepreneurs, we're so on to the next thing. We can rob ourselves of momentum and of the win because the win is actually really important. And I think what you said is, yeah, I know that the $17 isn't, it's not going to make or break, but you recognize that it's about more than that. And it is a win. And it's having that win filed away for I can do hard things. I can succeed when I go through the process. It works is what then allows you to go through that process in a bigger and bigger way. So
Yeah.
I love that
I,
you said that.
I love that you said that too, because I think it's also really cool when you look at a personal brand. You don't necessarily look at it. Let's like use, I mean, a friend of mine, I don't know if you know that truffle hot sauce brand, Truff, but like two of my Boston friends, they started this brand Truff, and they're always launching new products, right? There's like a mayonnaise, then there's a hot sauce, then there's an olive oil, and now they're partnering with Popeyes. If you were like, okay, so they started this brand and there's everything under, but then there's the personal brand, right? So there's Alexa Curtis, and now there's Be Fearless Summit, that's a product. There's a premium membership, that's a product. There is the Radio Disney show, that's a product. Not all of these have scaled and not all of them have worked in the same way that I bet they think one of their hot sauces hasn't worked the same way the mayo did in sales wise. But if you can look at yourself, especially if you're building a personal brand in that capacity, that's great. And for many personal brands, I mean, the subscription model, like across the board, is ideal because it's like residual income. A lot of people forget they're paying for such a small amount of money a month. And if you can quadruple that 17 or 15 or $5 into 500, 5,000, you're paying your rent by just like doing whatever this $5 is worth a month. And so that I also am like really intrigued by as of lately.
Definitely. So we talked about providing value in some way through regular connections. I'm wondering just practically for those who are thinking, okay, I have a newsletter. How often should I be connecting with my list? Or maybe I have a Telegram group, but as you said, it has a bit of a life of its own. Is there a rule of thumb around presence, connection, frequency?
If you have the time to do a daily newsletter, I would do it. It's something that I've thought about doing for a while, is like every day. I don't think right now I could handle that with like trying to grow it as well. But if not, then I think once a day, consistency is key. I mean, for me, it's the same day and time every single week. I once a month send out an email to people who are not opening the newsletter or who have unsubscribed.
Mhm.
Say, hey, I noticed this. Like, what can I do to entice you to come back? And then if you're on other platforms like Twitter, LinkedIn, or Instagram, TikTok, the more you show up, obviously, the better the engagement. I'll go like days where I post 100 times a day, and then like Saturday and Sunday, I don't really post that often. But I find that like for me, the more active I am on it, of course, the better it is, because if somebody likes following you, then they want to know what you're doing.
Right.
So the newsletter is quite different as well, because personal brands have newsletters, but there's also so many other areas. I mean, I know people who have like literally launched and sold, like their newsletters got acquired in something totally opposite of what they do as a day job. So there's so much potential there, but it does take time and it is effort. Similar to a podcast, a newsletter is quite similar, but it's that engaged following.
Yeah, definitely. So we've talked about all these amazing things you've done. You've got consulting ramping up. I know you also just recently moved to London. What are you most looking forward to next?
I'm most looking forward to this event in April. And then, second of all, I'm really excited. I mean, this consulting business, so I still go between here and LA, but I think in the UK in particular, there's so much opportunity here that I didn't realize until I started coming to London like a few times last year. And so it's very interesting for me to connect with these founders and see where their mind and headspace is at in a different way than like when I'm interviewing someone on a podcast. Because now I'm very well aware of, I even spoke with a founder earlier who started this like pasta company, and she's like, I think in her 40s, and like she's got 2 kids and she's super successful, but she has no idea, I think, the power of a personal brand, is like aware of it, but doesn't know how to do it. And so for me, it's now very cool to be able to say, this is what I've built. Like, I would love to help a really cool founder who's built a really awesome company do this as like their next step. And that's not something I ever anticipated. So that was the goal behind this firm. And I think it's been intriguing and exciting so far. I'm nerve-wracking, but it's cool.
Of course. And I will say the US is a unique microcosm in general, but when it comes to entrepreneurship and founders and personal branding, that definitely, it doesn't exist in the same way in a lot of places. And I lived in London for a number of years. Here. Yeah. It's definitely a different environment. I've had recently the opportunity to work more and more in Latin America in kind of impact founding, investing, and there as well. I'm not from the US, so I think that gives me the perspective to see it a little bit more easily maybe, but I think anyone who, whether you're from the US or not, has started in the US startup entrepreneur culture, it can feel like that's what everyone's experience is, and it's actually not. It's really this unique, very financially well-funded, very talked about, like there's just a lot of resources, conversation. I still think there's lots that people don't know and should know more about, but it is very different than most other parts of the world where entrepreneurship is very normal, but not as well connected. The community, the resources, the funding, the financing, it's all really different. So I think it's really cool to take what you have built and what you've learned and bring that to these other markets.
Yeah, it's fascinating here that it's not like that because it's so similar. It's like in New York, London, right? But then you talk to somebody about personal brand, or people here are also very reserved. I mean, my mom's British. Like, they're very reserved. They're not the person to, again, be that like, hey guys, this is what I'm doing, a day in my life. It's just not the vibe. And in America, it's like the hustle culture. You're not doing enough. It's never enough money. Here, people are like, it's 5. I think I'm done. Where, of course, there, it's like, oh my God, people are working till, myself included, 10 p.m., 11 p.m., like all the time. And it's, but why?
Yeah, it's weird. And London's a microcosm because London is pretty like hardworking, but it depends where you are and what industries. So yeah, very interesting to see how it goes for you. We've covered a lot of ground and your journey has had some fascinating evolutions. If you had one piece of advice, either for younger Alexa or people on their entrepreneurial journey today, what would it be?
Oh gosh, I really want to say not something cliche. My piece of advice would probably be, oh gosh.
For a reason. I hate them too, but I dabble.
I know. I just don't want to say something like, just do it. I don't know. Oh, I guess actually my biggest piece of it is like, don't tell people your ideas. That's the piece of advice. Don't tell people your ideas because not everyone's going to believe in you. Not everyone has your best interest at heart. And I really urge you to not tell like just because this person's your best friend or just because this person is your sister does not mean that they're going to believe in your idea, unfortunately. And I think I realized the hard way with relationships in my life, like friendships, like a lot of people are going to be really jealous if you're doing something different and not jealous and like, God, she's so cool or she's so beautiful, but it takes a lot of guts to do something like what you and I have done. Not everyone is cut out for this, and they shouldn't be because this is effing hard. And so I think to prevent yourself from getting burned or hurt in relationships is just obviously there's certain people you should tell things to and there's just certain people you shouldn't. And the sooner you find that out, the more that like should always have that person you can call when something goes wrong, but you shouldn't call everyone when something goes wrong because it's too many opinions. So just have that person or that second person that you're really in a safe space with that supports you even if you screw up.
Yeah.
And then keep everything else pretty close to you.
Yeah, I think that's actually an amazing piece of advice. Entrepreneurship is hard, and you will grow so much and you will lose people in your life that you maybe thought you never would. And I know I've been through that experience, and it's really tough. So I think that's an amazing piece of advice, is to have that awareness. And it's great to share and have some support, but you also just you have to prove it. Other people don't see your vision. They don't believe it's possible because they're not you, and they're not going to do it. So they don't need to believe that it's possible.
Exactly.
I always like to wrap up with a few rapid fire questions. They're ones that you can pass, skip, things like that. They just give a chance for people to get to know you a little bit beyond the business talk that we've been through. So you ready?
Yep. I love these.
All right.
What
is an experience that changed your life?
An experience that changed my life was, I think, my first actually TV segment on Rachel Ray.
Wow. Yeah. That's quite a first.
Yeah.
What does strategy mean to you?
To me, strategy means having the ability to be able to see like where you are now and where you want to be and like what the future holds, but also leaving room for things and to pop up and like to be flexible. So I think having a really flexible strategy in place is critical.
Love it. Is there a book you've read that changed your perspective on something?
Shoe Dog by Phil Knight. Mm-hmm. How to Stop Worrying and Start Living by Dale Carnegie. I have a lot of books. Those are probably my two, though.
All right. And the last one, if you could go to any concert tomorrow, touring or not, dead or alive, what would it be?
I don't know if he's a DJ or what he is, but there's a guy, his name's Darcy. It's Darci. It's like rap, but like EDM. I want to see him in March in London. So I'm really looking forward to that.
Awesome. Alexa, thank you again for being so generous with your time and your knowledge and your story. Where can people connect with you if they want to continue the conversation?
So you can follow me on LinkedIn or connect with me on LinkedIn, of course. My newsletter link is also in my bio on LinkedIn. And then on Instagram, it's Alexa_Curtis. TikTok is Alexa Curtis Unfiltered. And then Be Fearless Summit as Be Fearless_INC on Instagram. And that event is April 27th. So you can find out more on your page, on our page, whatnot.
Yes. Yeah. I'll be sharing more and more about it, as will you, and Be Fearless on Instagram. So Alexa, thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure. And I'm so excited to continue our conversation and get to meet in person soon.
Oh, Alex, thank you so much for having me. This is so amazing.
Yeah.
Thanks for tuning in. Our goal is to create connections and inspire conversations about building great companies. So please subscribe, rate, review, and share this podcast with your network. Sharing is caring. If you're a business leader or executive team ready to take your leadership and company to the next level with high-performing teams, we'd love to see how we can rocket fuel your growth. Check out the show notes to book your free Builders Business Booster call, where you'll receive a strategic leadership assessment and 3 concrete focus areas to mature and grow your business. You'll also find the link to join the Builders Club to stay up to date on upcoming events, get valuable tools and insights, as well as be the first to receive exciting announcements straight to your inbox. No spam, I promise. You'll also find my website, alexsnyder.com, and all the places to peep my creds, hear what clients have to say, and see if I went to the gym today. And one final note, this podcast is not intended to be legal, tax, or other professional advice. Thanks for joining. We'll catch you on the flip side.